My guest is an author, Trey Smith. He is not only an author of a book entitled Thieves, he has a very remarkable story, but he's also a producer of documentaries and videos that are uploaded on YouTube for you to view. Also, they're available for you to purchase as well on his website, godinanutshell.com. And today's topic is going to be solely based on one of his videos about Nephilim, the true story of Satan, fallen angels, giants, aliens, hybrids, elongated skulls. We're going to talk about the scriptures in Genesis, the book of Enoch, as well as other ancient texts. But everybody, welcome Trey Smith.
Hi, Sean. It's good. It's great to be on there with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. This is a topic that, I guess it could be considered somewhat taboo or far-fetched. This is something that's not normally discussed, but I think it's very important because we're talking about ancient texts, facts, archaeology finds that back up things that have been written in the Bible.
Sean, when you're talking about the, whether or not it's controversial, almost everything in the Bible has at this point become controversial, and this is really, and this is the greatest tragedy, Sean, because the stuff is all out there. You're not going to find a field archaeologist anywhere. I don't even care if he's an atheist, Sean, that doesn't have a copy of the King James Bible on him. But most every archaeological site, there are very few things in your Bible and most people don't realize this, that have not been found to this date. When you're talking about the Fertile Crescent, which is where all this begins out in the Middle East and ancient Samaria, these are your ages of empire, Sean. You start with Assyria, Samaria. Your next empire is ancient Egypt. Your next empire is going to be Babylon, then the Persians, then the Greeks come along and beat up on the Persians, and then after that the Romans. So those are your ages of empires. And ancient Samaria kind of takes off and begins out there in the area that we call the Fertile Crescent. So this is the same area where we find the ruins of Ur, which is where Abraham was born, and we find the little ancient settlement of Uruk. That's called by most historians are going to call Uruk the oldest city in the world. So that's those ruins are out there. And right next to ancient Uruk, you've got the ruins of ancient Eridu, and Eridu is where the Tower of Babel was. So, and you've got the ruins of that there as well. This would have been the largest ziggurat that was constructed in the world, and even by their own Sumerian records, you have hundreds of prayers to the Enki to rebuild the tower that fell down. So it's not just the documents that you have. You've got the actual enormous base of the ziggurat sitting out there. Of course, you've got the ruins of Nineveh, another biblical city. All of these are all side by side to each other, and people don't realize it. You've got the remains of Sodom and Gomorrah that sits out there. You can. This is a location that it was literally scorched so bad, not just in the pages of your Bible, but actually out there on the ground, a dig site that is covered with little bitty pebble-sized holes that have got they've got sulfur in them. Sulfur that if you light it on fire today will burn right through a spoon, like somebody pelted this stuff on an entire settlement. That's got ziggurats that have been burned beyond recognition. Something unusual happened at this site, the exact site, coincidentally, where your text tells you that God rained fire and brimstone. Now, the definition of brimstone, if you look it up right in your encyclopedia, is going to be sulfur, which is what you find pelted all over that entire site out there. Now, when you look, but all of this would be called, what I'm telling you right here, you can go take a plane, you can actually type in on the internet and go and look at these sites right from your home computer or go visit them. And, but by, the mainstream community, this is all, the Bible is a book full of nonsense. Well, If you go out there in Peru, you're going to find elongated skulls all over the place. So now if you type in Wikipedia, you're going to find that, that a lot of this is done by head binding. And that, in fact, is true. But a significant portion of it cannot be done by head binding. For example, you cannot get a human skull. You're not going to increase the head volume of a baby's head. So you can change the shape of the child's head, but you can't increase the actual head volume. And certainly not by 35% or more by binding its head. But the real red flag kicker is the fact that the actual skull, the sutures or the parietals, the skull fits together differently than your skull, my skull, or anybody listening to this show's skull. And you certainly cannot do that by binding a child's head. What I'm telling you is that the bones are different on the baby's head, on the fully grown adult's head. When you're doing measurements of the eye sockets, these are wildly wide. When you're doing, there are so many things on these skeletons. You could go through a list of details, but the one that kills it the quickest is that you're dealing with something that in its own skeletal system is structurally different from you and I.
Let's go into the fallen angels. Let's expand on that. Let me ask you this. Do you think that aliens are demonic beings, or are they just aliens, extraterrestrials from,
Yeah, of course they are. The answer to that is yes. Yes. What you're dealing with is the same thing that all of the ancient records would, what the ancient records would have called underworld gods. Well, first of all, Sean, if you were dealing with something coming from another planet, so if you legitimately had somebody that was banging together spaceships on another planet, and coming back and forth to here, I mean, you can type into the internet right now and you're going to find all sorts of things doing things that baffle physicists in the sky, which is interesting in and of itself. But if you've got that sheer volume of something coming back and forth, you would think we would sense the traffic. Your next thing is going to be that the telltale sign of the UFO phenomenon, if you want to call it that, has always been that you've got something appearing and disappearing right in thin air. The same thing with the abduction experiences, that you've got something walking right out into reality inside people's homes and then vanishing. So the question really fundamentally becomes at that point, where is it when you don't see it? Mm-hmm. Now, the answers that they're ultimately going to veer you towards with that particular question, in my opinion, and historically speaking, there's extensive literature on this. What sort of the end game sales pitch is. And it'll go something like this, that you've got a dimension running parallel to this one, and that dimension has got ascended beings in it, if you will, which is what the ancient cultures would have pitched as well. And that these guys have been helping our development, and so they're older than us, they're wiser than us, and so we ought to listen to them. My opinion is completely the reverse of that you're dealing with something that is inferior to you. This is demonstrated. You wouldn't even need one page of a Bible to demonstrate this. The sheer fact that you're dealing with something that needs to be summoned already tells you that there's something intrinsic to the nature of this place, which it requires permission to come in. See, because if it was actually above you, it would not require your permission to come in and do what it wanted to. There's some reason why it needs you. And I can take that a step further, too, and tell you that in the many, many people who I've talked to who have had these experiences, Sean, they're absolutely terrified. See, whether they undergo hypnosis to remember, events that happened to them, it doesn't matter what they do to recollect. The experience of interaction with these things is terrifying. And also you're going to find redundancies in your ancient texts of, bringing the gods, semen. This is something that I plan to expound on in a future video. But I'm telling you that this stuff about the gathering the eggs and semen is not trite. And this is so prevalent that we've made jokes out of it that the aliens are going to probe you. But the aliens, the quote-unquote aliens, seem to have a significant interest in people's sexual parts.